Hello, everyone. George Watkins here. Happy Monday and a blessed and happy and Memorial Day. Well, I did a little piece below. You can read it when you get a chance. Whether we should call this a happy memorial, like we do Happy Thanksgiving or Happy Easter. It's more of a sober time of remembrance. Most Americans do not have close military connections because the military, those that we celebrate today that are active or that in the past have been a small percentage of the 330 million, something like that we have now. So there's not a connection between the meaning and the purpose of this Memorial Day. We are setting this day aside to remember those that have sacrificed their life and given themselves so that we might have freedom, so that we can go to the barbecues and the racetracks and the rodeos and the fairgrounds and the beaches and the rivers and enjoy our American freedom. Well, I celebrate, and in a sober and a somber moment, take time to remember the generations of men and women that have given themselves so that you and I can walk the streets free and rejoice in our God. We can go after any type of career we want. We can study any subject we want. We can, in most parts, in most states, fish and hunt. If we have a license, of course, that helps pay for the rangers, but it's a freedom we have to do many things. Someone paid for that, and today we take time to remember and to honor them. Well, you and I understand that all this physical world is held together by the spiritual world. So we celebrate and have a memorial celebration today for our spiritual heroes that have made it possible for you and me to have freedom spiritually and in our physical life freedom even. Because these Americas, the American states and nation we have, was founded upon the idea of religious freedom. You remember the Pilgrims and the Puritans were persecuted. They escaped to Holland for a while out of England. Then they left Holland, came back to England and purchased their ships so they could come across and establish the New England territories. They were originally going to Virginia, but the weather clamped down on them, and they ended up in the New England states. They established the principles of God in their laws. And as our developing nation continued, even to the point of the Constitution, Bill of Rights, and all the things that were put together, all of our laws were based on, and still are based on, the scriptural principles. In the early days, they put scriptures down in the bottom of the law briefs so that those reading those laws could tell where they came from. We've had a multitude of wars in the natural, and in the spiritual, we've had a multitude of contests that men and women have stood their ground and defended the faith. Well, we know some of it was physical. We've had some history where men and women were being physically killed and they had to stand their faith. There's a story out of the Middle Ages in the European region. There was a group of Christians called the Huguenots, and they were being destroyed by the opposing religion. And they finally drew a line in the sand and began to defend themselves, or they would have all been martyred and wiped out. That has happened. But I want to go back to Hebrews 11 for a moment. This is a familiar one to most of us, but I wanted to just take a snapshot of the list of people in the Old Testament that the writer of Hebrews, which sounds a lot like Paul, but we're not for sure. But they list those heroes of faith that gave their lives and stood the ground, not yet gaining their victory. They didn't see the end of it. They didn't see the reward of their works totally. But they stood their faith and did not waver. Now, we're not going to preview, or we're not going to go through the whole chapter. But if you'd open it up, and in these next few hours, that you have some time today, go through that chapter and read each of those names as real people with real feelings, fears, faith, and a life that was connected to others. And they had captured the purposes of God in their day. They had captured the purposes of God in their day, and they believed there was a future day for the next generation. And because of that, they stood their ground of faith. Amen. Well, the 32nd verse in the Passion Bible. And what more could I say to convince you? For there is not enough time to tell you of the faith of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, and the prophets. Through faith's power, they conquered kingdoms and established true justice. I like that phrase out of the Passion. Through faith's power, they established justice and a kingdom. You and I have the opportunity. I woke up this morning with that word in my spirit. An opportunity. This day is an opportunity. All right. I said, Lord, what kind of opportunity? He said, you name it. Remember the thing we got criticized for in the 70s? Name it and claim it group. We just have to say it. I name it and I get it. Well, that's really a good shortcut for the teaching of your confession and your declaration. Name it and claim it. I know it's a slur and it's meant to be a derogatory thought, but we need to claim it by speaking the word of God into our situation, into our day. So God woke me up and said, this is a day of opportunity. Now, if you've been listening the last few days, I spent one session on temptation, where a temptation or a trial is an opportunity to prove your faith and to exercise your muscles. Prove your faith and exercise your muscles. Just yesterday, I went to a celebration in our town north of us called Bellingham, and they have an exercise every Memorial Day called Ski to Sea. Now, Mount Baker is to the east a number of miles, and it's snow-capped right now, so they have skiing and snowboarding and all kinds of snow activities. So in the early morning time, they start off with a group of people that have joined other team members. There's about 7 team members that join together. And the first one climbs up a mountain and snowboards down. They may ski, some of them may ski, others snowboard. And when they come down, then it's like passing the baton, as the English say, and give it to the next guy. Well, the next person gets on a bicycle, and they go flying down the mountain on a bicycle. And then when they get there, they get to someone else who gets in a boat, and then they get to a person that gets into a canoe, a kayak. Well, as they get down next to the bay, which is in Bellingham, my daughter-in-law then got into a canoe and paddled for an hour and a half to the gold, to the end goal. They add all the numbers up, and whoever has the best time, their team wins. Last year, my daughter-in-law and my son's family and their team won the prize. Why? Because they had practiced. Now, I'm standing, my wife, Arliss, and I were standing next to the water, waiting, anticipating the approach of my daughter-in-law. And I'm thinking, this has got to hurt. I'm hurting just thinking about paddling a kayak for an hour and a half in the wind and the waves of the bay. Why? Why would I think that way? Because I haven't exercised my muscles. I haven't been in a kayak in my whole life. If I got in one and paddled 100 feet, my muscles would have said, enough's enough. Now, the point is, the exercising of your faith proves you to be stronger when you come through that temptation or that trial. So these that are written about, their faith was the thing that maintained their strength and their loyalty and their faithfulness. I encourage you today on this Memorial Day to remember the saints of God that have made it possible for you to stand and preach the gospel, for the revelations that have come in our centuries past, for the men and women of God in your life personally that raised you and preached to you and prayed for you and loved you and slapped you around a little bit in the spirit to wake you up to the possibilities of Christ in you, the hope of glory. Those, I would think it would be a great idea today to remember some of your mentors and your tutors. Send them a note, a text, a card, a phone call, and tell them how much you appreciate them, because this is our spiritual Memorial Day. We're remembering those that shaped our lives. My mother and father, of course, being my greatest influence, because I was raised in their home, and they were my spiritual parents in that sense. But there were a number of others that molded me. There were more than a number of men and women that I never met that shaped my faith and molded my faith through their preaching, their writings, their example. I honor them today. If I took time to name them, we would be here quite a while. But I'm sensitive to the fact that I am what I am today because of the spiritual heroes that have gone on before me. And I thank God for every one of them. I can see their faces. I've got some of the pictures on my wall. And behind me, there's some pictures on my shelves that remind me of what they said to me and how they helped me in a time when I needed direction or correction or encouragement. Those are the heroes for our spiritual Memorial Day, and I celebrate them. So make a list of yours. Take some time to remember how God has molded you and brought you along. If you're just starting in this faith walk and in the walk of Christian believing and loving Jesus, well, somebody prayed for you, as I said a day or two ago. And there's people in your life, no doubt, right now that are becoming your strength and heroes, your that sergeant in your life that'll help you. I remember Kenneth Copeland was talking along these lines years ago, and he asked his sergeant, "Why are you so mean to me?" He was in boot camp. He said, "Well, if we ever go to war and you're laying in the ditch dead, it's not going to be my fault. I'm going to do everything I can to make you ready for warfare." Well, that's our heroes that have brought us along. I bless you today on this Memorial Day, and I do say happy memorial because of those that have sacrificed. We have a happy time today. Until tomorrow morning, don't forget, subscribe and do all the things that I suggest every day to do, and I appreciate you doing it. Thank you for your support, both in prayers and in finances. Those that have sent something in, we do bless you and thank you for it. Okay, tomorrow morning we will be here, and we will be more excited tomorrow than we are today, more in love with Jesus, if possible, than we are today. Until then, may the Lord bless you and keep you.